So just diving again into elements of working with trauma, and reminded in session today of the importance of actually coming home to ourselves, actually arriving deeply within our own being. So when there's shock or trauma in the system, it could be something as simple as when one is an infant or a small child having a lot of shouting or loud noise, loud anger in the house. For a small child, that's actually trauma. That's traumatizing to the whole nervous system, and it's scary and it feels unsafe. Could it also be something simple? It could be someone who's been through a car accident in which you see the vehicle coming, and so there's that preparation, there's that drawing into the heart, into the upper body, and holding tension. So just two simple examples. But during those moments, sometimes if the trauma is particularly shocking or long-lasting or repeated or just really extreme, it's almost as if the energy body pulls out of our physical core to some degree. And in that case, sometimes it's almost like we just haven't even been here within myself. I haven't been within my body. It's like the energy body is perhaps somewhere close, but sometimes actually really far in the case of extreme trauma in early childhood or prolonged trauma in early childhood. It's almost like not only am I not home for myself, am I not here at the core, but actually maybe I'm not even close to this physical body because perhaps it wasn't safe to be in my body. So psychically or energetically or on the level of emotion and cognition, part of me has pulled away in order to have resilience, in order to actually survive. And so part of the journey working with trauma is creating a sense of enough safety in this present moment that it's actually okay and safe to come into the body, sometimes for the first time, really for the first time, particularly when that trauma has started in utero, or even at the moment of conception, where there's an environment that the child is coming into, is going to be born into, that really isn't safe emotionally, physically, or otherwise. So a huge part of actually feeling okay in the world, a huge part of resolving anxiety, can have to do with simply creating enough safety in this moment that we can allow the energy field to surface what has been held, can surface this vibration of unsafety, and to bring that up consciously in this present moment and to allow it to disperse and release and integrate. And once it's released very consciously in the present moment, that energy won't restore in the same trauma loop. And by trauma loop, I mean that when there's an extreme trauma event or a series of extreme trauma events, particularly in early childhood, where we don't have the capacity to just leave home, pack my bags, I'm out of here, this doesn't feel good, I'm going. As a little child, you can't do that. It's not even possible. So we create a safe place to put the overwhelm. We put a safe place in the psyche to put that level of shock or sadness. And those trauma loops are not meant to open. It's meant to be a sealed space, a safe space in which the overwhelm lives or the shock lives. But when, as an adult, we go through certain things, either something similar that triggers a similar childhood feeling, or if we are super tired, or, for women with PMS, sometimes if we haven't eaten well, and we suddenly don't have enough blood sugar. Sometimes when we're feeling a little thin or threadbare in the physical way or the emotional way, suddenly we're not holding that trauma loop closed well enough. And so suddenly some of the energy or the emotion that goes with that closed trauma pattern will come flooding out. So suddenly you'll find someone who gets angry out of nowhere, or maybe responds to a situation with a much bigger emotional response than the situation seems to call for. And it may be that something has triggered them, either tiredness or lack of nutrition or hormonal or some similar event. It's triggered them enough that that stored information that was meant to be held sort of at bay for safety, for resilience, has come flooding, and that trauma loop has just opened. But without resolving it in the present moment, it will restore. And that trauma energy will always store in the present tense because it's not completed. So it stores in this closed system as if it's happening right now. And so we could actually relax the entire planet by facilitating as many people as possible and facilitating existence itself to begin to release. It's amazing the number of people walking around holding a level of trauma or shock or overwhelm in their energy body. And we sometimes think that it has to be some big event. Like some people will say, well, no, I had a pretty okay childhood. It was nothing major. But it doesn't have to be that it's such a big event. It may be, for sure, because there's a lot of very challenging childhood stories that we're carrying around as a species, actually. But it may be something that seems, that we haven't given as much weight to because, gosh, I've heard my friends' stories and they went through so much. I seem like I had a pretty good childhood, but, every time this person would walk in the house, there would be yelling. And everyone was like walking on eggshells. And we were always wondering when was the next, sort of shouting going to happen in a way that caused shock in my system. And for a little baby, especially, and a small child, especially as children get older, if that's always gone on, they'll start to form a whole different response. It won't always look like shock. They may armor, they may protect, they may numb out, they may emotionally leave. So children will always have a different response, and not every child in a family will respond in the same way. But the good news is that we can resolve and release those trauma loops in the present tense in a very gentle way, and start to repattern the central nervous system around safety and around peace. And that is really, really good news.